After the war, the meetings continued. But something had changed.
Cooperation remained on paper, but trust no longer came easily.
Every word was weighed. Every phrase was reconsidered.
Behind closed doors, leaders began thinking less about recovery and more about risk. In Washington, doubts emerged about how long cooperation could last. In Moscow, intentions were questioned just as carefully. Public smiles hid private suspicion. Messages grew cautious. Meaning mattered more than tone.
Europe watched closely, aware that its future depended on distant trust.
The war was over. The alliance was not. Distance, once symbolic, became physical.
Even shared agreements were no longer read the same way.
Public language shifted, reflecting private concern.
Decisions slowed as uncertainty spread. Economic recovery began to feel tied to political reliability. Control was increasingly seen as protection. Rules multiplied where trust declined. Meetings continued. Decisions did not. Cooperation remained on paper. Trust disappeared in practice.
Rebuilding continued, but confidence did not.
Planning became centralized, designed to prevent uncertainty from spreading.
Economic recovery exposed a deeper problem. Trust could not be measured on a chart.
Every shipment now carried questions, not just supplies. Control was seen as the safest path forward. Assistance began to depend on alignment, not need alone. Influence was strengthened through structure and supervision.
For ordinary people, rules replaced reassurance.
Urgency grew, even as certainty declined. Mistrust was no longer temporary. It was becoming policy. Political debate slowed as certainty disappeared. In the East, decisions moved faster, but only in one direction. Uncertainty filtered down to ordinary life.
Stability was promised at the price of silence.
Short-term cooperation was no longer considered reliable.
Security planning hardened into structure. Security planning hardened into structure. The post-war world was no longer adjusting. It was settling. Unity survived in language, not inaction.
Mistrust had finished its work. Division was next. Borders were no longer temporary markers.
Movement now required permission.
In the west, movement continued, but cautiously.
In the east, movement followed strict procedure.
Division reached daily routines.
Even education adapted to new realities.
Information traveled, but meaning changed.
What began as caution hardened into structure.
For families, division became personal.
Mistrust had settled in. Control became routine. Decisions moved from debate to procedure.
Restrictions became part of daily planning.
Order was maintained through oversight.
Public language adjusted to permanent caution.
Education aligned with certainty.
Change was explained, not questioned.
Stability relied on visibility. The lines were no longer provisional. Division had become the new normal.
What began as caution became permanence.
Temporary measures stopped being temporary. Choices narrowed for ordinary people.
Certainty replaced flexibility.
Space itself began to carry meaning.
Uniformity was presented as stability. Language adjusted to a lasting reality.
Reassurance was carefully managed.
The map no longer suggested unity. A divided world greeted a new day.
Dialogue continued. Agreement did not.
Some decisions were simply left unfinished.
Planning shifted from partnership to preparation. Maybe, yeah.
Security became the organizing principle.
Temporary presence became permanent.
Certainty replaced debate. Uncertainty became public.
The implications were no longer regional.
Neither side believed division would remain contained.
What began in Europe was spreading.
Opportunities for reversal faded. The lines held. Division was no longer debated.
The alliance had ended without an announcement.
The Cold War did not begin with weapons. It began with suspicion.